address that complaint when you hear that complaint?
So, as it really bothers me when there isn't I think my real concern is intentionality. I have no problem with artists coming from out of town to create art. You know, we want our city to be vibrant. We want to support artists from all over the place. And at the same time, what does it mean when we're not supporting our artists at home to the same caliber? So if you're doing local art calls for folks at $30,000, but you're doing out-of-state art calls for $50,000 to $500,000, what does that say for local artists? And what does that do for our arts economy? So the other thing too is that the complaint that we often hear is, well, there isn't anyone here that's qualified. So then my response is, well, then as a government, if we had a whole group of quantity local plumbers, then we would have to have a program like, oh, come apprentice under this plumber because we have a plumber shortage. But when it comes to artists, they don't do that same level of work. Where it's like, okay, if you're not ready to apply for a public art call at $50,000 to $100,000, we are going to bring in someone. We're going to go through these classes. We know that in the next 3 to 5 years, because these calls don't come up overnight, we know that we're going to put out another call in 2 years or in a year and a half or 18 or however long. We're going to send you, if you go through this training, you'll be ready for that, right? Like you'll get practice so that we can also be supporting our local artists, and then our local artists can go apply in other cities to do work. So then that's a shout out for us, right? Like that makes us feel good and better. But again, there's that lack of intentionality, and it's concerning when it feels like your local government, the same place that you're paying taxes like everyone else, doesn't actually want to support your professional well-being.
Yeah. And how do you think that we're doing in terms of like even supporting our art on the academic and the school level? Because I know that's another thing that I know a lot of people in the art community are concerned about because they see art budgets being cut regularly, whether that's on the state level, whether it's on the local level or whatever, and then they feel that even though, like I just said earlier, we know that art is part of developing somebody into a well-rounded individual, that kind of classic educational training, but it seems like lately people have been devaluing the importance of art even to our kids. So I was wondering how you feel about that and whether you feel that is a legitimate complaint, that we're not getting enough support of the arts in our academic and school systems, whether that's on the college level or definitely on the grade school level.
Oh, absolutely. I think we can't stress enough how important arts are in school. And again, I think going back to not being able to value it in dollars and cents under capitalism is the same issue that we're having because you can't do a standardized test for art. You can't do you just can't, right? And there is no measure for it. I remember in high school, one of my closest friends, he was a very talented visual artist, and he had a creative portfolio in order to get into the advanced placement art class. He would have gotten a college credit for art if he had gotten into this class. But the director would not let him in because he could do a realistic drawing, and he painted his dad. He did his dad, and he did his dad in blue scale. It's also kind of similar to William Paul Thomas, one of our local artists' work, but the whole face is blue. And she wouldn't accept him because he didn't follow directions. But what she didn't know is that his father had passed away just a few months ago. So for him, that was realistic because that was his feeling at the time. And there's no standardized test for stuff like that, is what I'm saying. But there's how can you place a number or a value on the fact that he, as a young man, was able to express himself in these ways. I know growing up, there were times when I didn't want to go to school, but I wanted to go to rehearsal, so I went to school. And I know other folks who had that same story, that it wasn't the math or the English or the science, it was the music department, or it was the dance department, or it was the art department that really made them stick it out. And as we lose that, young people are also losing their ability to grapple and figure out their world, because their world is not just numbers and facts. Their numbers are also their internal schema that's changing. We change so much from 14 to 18, and if we don't have ways to express it, what type of adults will we have? So I deeply, it's just a huge issue, and I'm appreciative for organizations like Black Space, or Empower Dance, or any other spaces that are allowing young people to have access to art outside of school.
Yeah, because I think it's important for them to have things like Empower, like you said, and Black Space, which Pierce has been very much involved with, and things like that, so they can have those accesses if the school system is not going to do it. Because it does seem like the school systems are pulling back on the support of the arts, just like they pull back on support of vocation training and other kinds of training that we know are very important to society,
right.
But they seem to be stuck on just wanting to concentrate on definitely like some of the higher end kind of stuff. Not saying that that's not needed, computer skills and things of that nature, but sometimes it seems like we've lost some of the other things that historically have been very important to us. Now, one of the things I also noticed you did, because I went to it last year, was the theater festival. How did that come about? Because for a long time, there wasn't really there's the big Black Theater Festival down in Winston-Salem, which will be, this is an odd year, so it'll be this year. But you created one here. Why did you think that it was very valuable to have one here? And because I know that you incorporated, it seems like there's a vibrant new theater community here in the Triangle, because there's at least 5 or 6 Black theater companies that I'm aware of that are in the Triangle. So I just wondering, is that part of why you decided to do the theater festival? And do you feel that you reached them all? And what are the plans going forward? Because like I said, I know that was the first time, and it was at a theater that was in one of the theaters that was unfortunately closing down, because as we've had all this gentrification downtown, the arts have been impacted by that. So I was also wanting to know how you feel the arts are, what the impact of the gentrification has been, because I know that has hurt a lot of us, because we've seen entire theaters go down, Man Bites being one of them. I believe there are some other theaters locally that are closing as well.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the Bull City Black Theater Festival. We did it last March. It was actually started by Jamisa Holloway Burrell. She is a Durham native. She went to BSA, and then she went to Central, and then she went to New York for a little bit, and now she's home raising her daughter, Allie. And Allie just had a birthday. Happy birthday, Allie. And she has seen Durham change. So she grew up here. I believe her mama is a Durham native as well. So their family has been in Durham and seen Durham changing. And she's a theater artist. So she gathered a whole bunch of us, mainly Black women, and it's like, hey, y'all, I want to do this Black Theater Festival here in Durham. And Jeff and Ed, the owners of Man by Dog, they were really gracious to offer a space because of the last season. And, they were just like, yeah, let's do it to do this festival. And I'm really grateful for Jamaica and grateful for our opportunity to create and to make that space. So we, showed stage readings of work by Black theater artists that had never been produced before. We and cast local folks, and we did workshops. My mom led a workshop for women who wanted to perform who were over 50. We did a movement workshop. I did a movement workshop. We just had a really great time. So we're taking a year off from this year, so we're going to do it next year. So it looks like we'll be on the even year, since the National Black Theater Festival is on the odd year. And we're really excited to continue to explore, because like you said, there is at least 5 or 6 Black theater companies in the Triangle alone. There's no dearth of Black theater, and we want to make sure that folks know that. So yeah, that's what we're up to.
Why do you think there's such a good theater community in the area?
I definitely think our HBCUs have something to do with that. I mean, we have, fantastic HBCUs here. I think, Central's theater program, their dance program, their jazz program, all creates an atmosphere that's just right for Black creators. A&T is down the street. A&T is one of only 2 Black Black HBCU theater companies that are accredited in theater, nationally accredited. Howard being the other one, and a lot of the students who go to A&T are from Durham. And then I think even just beyond the Black theater community, this Durham and the Triangle has had strong theaters. I mean, Raleigh Little Theater has been around since the 30s or something like that. The universities have strong theater programs. So I think that it really is true that a rising tide raises all ships. So as there have been more and more folks, particularly like with reverse migration, I'm definitely a child of reverse migration. We're coming back to the South and we're trying to figure out, especially millennials, we're getting married older, we're having children later, and because of that, we're like, okay, like, I'm chilling at home. What are my passions? What can I do? And a lot of us are finding art and theater in that space to fill our time and to want to create community in that way.
Yeah, because it seems like a lot of times the theater has been one of the things that I've noticed is it seems to be the theater community creates an environment where people wind up staying. Like I said, like you mentioned, Empower, which is Nicole Oxendine. She was trained, I believe, as a kid, as a student at Hillside, and then she went and became a teacher at Hillside, and now she runs her own dance company. Wendell Tabb was, I believe, locally, at least was a Central graduate. I can't remember if he was born here, because I think he might have been born in one of the country towns and everything, but he went to Central, and then he's been the force behind Hillside Drama Department forever. I mean, he's been there for 20, 25, maybe 30 years or whatever, and he's taking his people all over the world. He's taking them to Africa. He's taking them to China. He's taking them all over the place. So it seems like a lot of times, because I know some cities will have strong programs, but the people will get their degree and vanish. But it seems to me that a lot of times our folks will, even if they vanish, they wind up coming back. Because like I said, I know Jack Kelly disappeared, went to New York. I know Irvin Truitt for a minute went up to New York before having his family and coming back and running his various theater companies that he's been involved with. But it does seem like there seems to be a draw back to the North Carolina and particularly Durham and the South for a lot of these people that have been trained here on a regular basis. Because it seems that I'm always running into people that have, even if they've left, they've come back, and that just seems to be a natural fit for around this area.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Mr. Tabb and that program at Hillside, because I think that's another huge reason why we have so many strong theater performers, because they've come through this program. He's been cranking folks out for over 2 decades, and I knew so many folks at A&T who came into his program. I mean, Kevin Wilson, who's nominated for an Oscar last year, he and I were in school at the same time, and he was often in theater shows, and he and I are really good friends, and I know that he attributes a lot of his artistic success to Mr. Tabb and to Hillside Theater Program. So I think that is definitely no way to understate that. And then Baba Chuck as well, like Baba Chuck being in the area and, creating this vibrant dance scene also. I mean, and I think all those things link together to create an environment where folks, especially Black folks, really value the power of art and are looking for it. And I think these theater companies that are now like being born or coming back from being resurged and coming back again are all in response to that. And I think they are in response to gentrification. I think that we create art and culture so that we're not forgotten, because we don't see our stories on the street anymore. We don't see our places of business. We don't see our cultural landmarks. So then we create culture instead. And I think that's another reason why we're seeing this resurgence of Black theater in the Triangle.
Yeah, because it seems to me that, and I want to get to it, I think I heard a bell in the background as well, which means somebody else is calling in. But it seems to me that we're also in the middle of what some people would argue is almost like a new Harlem Renaissance, because I know the Harlem Renaissance was definitely around, like, I guess the 30, 40 kind of period. And, of course, there was the Black theater movement in the around the 60s and the 70s and the civil rights stuff. But it seems like we're almost in the middle of a new one, even on a national level, where there's a lot of people that are doing very powerful art, but it's not just regular art. It's a lot of socially conscious art. It's art about what's going on in society, whether that's making political statements, whether that's making social justice statements, or things of that nature. At least that's the impression that I get. Would you agree that we seem to be in the middle of a new Black Power theater movement or a new Harlem Renaissance, or that this is like another wave? Because it seems like these things happen in cycles, and it seems like we're in the middle of another one.
I definitely agree with that. I definitely think we're in a cycle. And I'm so excited to be in this moment, to be a Black creative, a Black artist right now. It feels like such a joy and such a gift, because I know that I'm not doing it by myself. And I know that our social media culture and lots of things play into that. And I'm so grateful because I get to create And I can think about Janika Holloway. I can think about DeDreana Hanu. I can think about Jacqueline Lawton. I can think about my mother. I can, I can just, and those are the folks locally, right? Not to mention the folks that I'm connected to in New York or in D.C. or Chicago